Home Depot shoppers are being guided by systems they never see. And if you don't know what to look for, you're spending more than you think every single visit. That's just one of the weird facts hiding inside this store. In this video, we're exposing 30 weird facts about Home Depot no shopper really knows. Tactics that have been quietly shaping how you buy for years. Some of these explain why certain products are always in your path. Others explain why deals disappear, prices don't match, and projects somehow cost more than planned. Every fact in this countdown changes how you shop, what to buy, what to skip, and when to stop. And the final one exposes something Home Depot depends on that most shoppers never question. Let's get started. 30. Home Depot's confusing layout isn't an accident. Home Depot feels chaotic for a reason. Most shoppers assume the store is just big, messy, and hard to navigate. It isn't. The layout is designed to slow you down. The longer you're inside, the more likely you are to grab things you didn't plan on buying, fittings, accessories, and small add-ons that quietly inflate your total. That's why seasonal products and power tools hit you first, while basics like fasteners, plumbing parts, or specific materials are pushed deeper into the store. You're guided past high-margin categories before you reach what you actually came for. If you walk in without a plan, Home Depot's layout does the planning for you. And once you notice that, you start seeing another pattern they rely on to keep you shopping longer. 29. End caps aren't recommendations, they're paid for. Those displays at the end of the aisle look like Home Depot's top picks. They're not. End caps are some of the most valuable real estate in the entire store, and brands compete hard to be there. The product isn't featured because it's better. It's there because the manufacturer paid for visibility or agreed to specific sales terms. That placement works because your brain treats end caps as shortcuts. You see the item first, assume it's popular or recommended, and skip comparing it to alternatives buried mid-aisle. The catch is that better value options are often sitting just a few feet away, untouched, because they didn't pay for that spotlight. Once you realize end caps are advertisements, not guidance, you start shopping past them instead of stopping at them. That leads directly into the next thing Home Depot does to control what brands you even notice in the first place. 28. Some exclusive tools are cheaper versions on purpose. When you see a tool labeled as a Home Depot exclusive, it sounds like a good thing. It isn't always. In many cases, those exclusives are slightly altered versions of a brand's regular product. Same model name, same color, same branding, but cheaper internals or fewer features to hit a specific price point. Most shoppers never notice because the differences aren't on the box. They're in the motor, the bearings, the switches, parts you only feel after months of use, not in the aisle. This lets Home Depot advertise a lower price without technically price-matching competitors, because the product isn't exactly the same. The move works because it feels like you're getting something special, when in reality, you're getting something optimized for margin. The next thing you start questioning is how Home Depot decides where the real discounts are hidden. 27. Clearance isn't in one place on purpose. Most stores train shoppers where to look for clearance. Home Depot does the opposite. There's usually a clearance bay, but it's rarely the only place discounts live. Marked down items are scattered across departments, mixed in with full-price products, sometimes even sitting in their original spot. That's intentional. If clearance were centralized and obvious, shoppers would head straight there, grab the deal, and leave. By spreading it out, Home Depot keeps you moving, comparing and discovering other items along the way. It also changes how you perceive the discount. When a marked-down item appears unexpectedly, it feels rare and urgent, even if it's been sitting there for weeks. The result is that many shoppers walk past real deals without realizing it, while others buy things simply because they stumbled onto a lower price. And that leads into another quiet tactic Home Depot uses to control what prices you actually notice. 26. Price matching is more limited than it sounds. Home Depot advertises price matching, and most shoppers assume that means automatic savings. It doesn't. Price matching only works when the product is an exact match. Same model number, same packaging, same specifications. Even a small difference gives the store an easy out, and many items are intentionally sold in slightly altered versions to avoid direct comparisons. Online prices create another layer of confusion. A lower price on HomeDepot.com doesn't always mean you'll get that price in the store. And third-party sellers are usually excluded entirely. The system works because most shoppers don't push it. They see the policy, assume it's flexible, and move on without challenging the price. Once you realize how narrow the rules actually are, you start checking details instead of trusting the sign. And that matters because the next tactic isn't about price at all. It's about what Home Depot is really watching when you're in the store. 25. Home Depot isn't watching you, it's watching patterns. Most shoppers assume loss prevention is about catching individual thieves. That's not the real focus. Home Depot pays far more attention to patterns. Which items disappear, which departments shrink the fastest, and which products are most likely to walk out without being scanned. The data matters more than the person. That's why certain items get locked up while others don't, even when they cost more. It's not about price, it's about historical loss rates and how often a product causes problems at checkout. This also explains why some aisles feel heavily monitored while others feel ignored. The attention follows the numbers, not the shoppers. Once you understand that, the next thing makes more sense. Why Home Depot pushes you toward renting instead of buying in the first place. 24. Tool rental is designed to look helpful, not cheap. Home Depot's tool rental counter feels like a money-saving service. In reality, it's built to be a convenience play. For one-off jobs, renting makes sense. But for anything you'll do more than once, the math quietly flips against you. Daily rates add up fast, and accessories, deposits, and late fees turn cheap into expensive. What makes rental powerful for Home Depot is timing. You're already mid-project, already committed, and far more likely to say yes to whatever gets the job done today. That urgency removes comparison shopping. The result is that many shoppers rent tools they could have bought for slightly more, or bought cheaper elsewhere, simply because rental feels like the responsible option. The next thing becomes obvious. Home Depot plans seasonal inventory long before you ever see a sale sign. 23. Seasonal deals are decided months before you see them. By the time you notice a seasonal item on sale, the decision was made long ago. Home Depot locks in seasonal inventory months in advance based on forecasts, vendor contracts, and storage limits. Once that inventory lands, the clock starts ticking. Whatever doesn't move fast enough becomes a liability. That's why seasonal discounts follow predictable patterns. Prices don't drop because demand suddenly changed. They drop because space is needed for the next season's products. Most shoppers wait until the end, hoping for the biggest markdowns. The catch is that the best items are often gone by then, leaving only leftovers that didn't sell for a reason. If you understand the timing, you stop guessing and start buying when the price drop. Actually makes sense, and that sets up the next move. How Home Depot uses special deals to make prices look better than they are. 22. Special buy doesn't always mean special. That bright special buy label is designed to stop you. Most shoppers read it as a deal. Sometimes it is, sometimes it isn't. Many of these items are produced specifically for promotions, not pulled from regular inventory. That means the price looks good compared to a suggested retail number, but not necessarily good compared to what similar products sell for every day. The shortcut works because shoppers stop comparing once they see the tag. They assume the math has already been done for them. In reality, some special buys are only special if you don't look one aisle over or check a comparable brand online. Once you start treating those tags as marketing instead of savings, you notice another pattern. Home Depot doesn't mind if you buy more than you actually need. 21. Home Depot quietly encourages you to overbuy. Home Depot rarely sells exactly what your project needs. It sells more than enough. Fasteners come in oversized packs. Wiring is bundled in longer lengths than most jobs require. Project kits include extras, just in case. It feels helpful, but it's deliberate. Overbuying reduces returns caused by shortages mid-project. It also increases the odds you'll come back later for matching parts, tools, or replacements, even if half the original purchase went unused. Most shoppers focus on unit price and miss the real cost, buying quantities they'll never touch again. Once you notice how often you're left with leftovers, the next thing becomes clear. Not all advice in the store is coming from the same level of experience. 20. Not every employee is trained to help you the same way. Shoppers often assume anyone in an orange apron has the same level of knowledge. That's not how it works. Training at Home Depot varies heavily by department, tenure, and staffing needs. Some employees have years of hands-on experience. Others were placed in a department because that's where coverage was needed that day. That's why advice can feel rock solid in one aisle and vague or hesitant in the next. It's not about effort, it's about specialization. The risk is treating every answer as expert guidance. For simple questions, you're fine. For technical or safety-critical decisions, relying on the wrong advice can cost you time, money, or a redo. Another tactic becomes obvious. Home Depot is willing to lose money on certain tools to lock you into something much bigger. 19. Some tools are cheap because the battery isn't. At first glance, the price looks great. A power tool that's cheaper than competitors feels like an easy win. The catch shows up later. Home Depot is perfectly fine selling certain tools at thin margins, or even near cost, because the real money is in the battery platform. Once you buy into one system, you're far more likely to keep buying compatible tools, chargers, and replacements. Switching platforms later is expensive and annoying, so most people don't. They stick with what they started, even if better options exist. That first cheap tool isn't the deal, it's the entry point. And the next thing builds on that idea, because Home Depot gives a completely different experience to shoppers who buy tools for a living. 18. Contractors see prices. Most shoppers never do. If you've ever wondered how pros seem to buy the same things for less, it's not your imagination. Home Depot quietly gives contractors access to pricing flexibility regular shoppers never see. Bulk discounts, negotiated quotes, and volume-based adjustments happen through systems that don't show up on shelf tags. That's why two people can buy the same materials on the same day and pay very different totals. One is shopping retail, the other is buying as a business. Most homeowners never realize this tier exists, so they assume the shelf price is the best possible price. Often, it isn't. Once you understand that, the next policy starts to look a lot less generous than it appears at first glance. 17. The return policy is friendly until it isn't. Home Depot's return policy feels generous, and for most people, it is. You bring something back, they scan it, refund processed, no friction. What shoppers don't see is the system running in the background. Returns are tracked over time, not just what you return, but how often, what categories, and in what condition. Patterns matter more than any single return. At first, nothing happens. Then one day, a return gets denied, limited, or flagged with no explanation beyond system decision. No warning, no appeal at the counter. The policy works because most shoppers stay well under the line without ever knowing where the line is. And that uncertainty is intentional, because the next department makes money by keeping you from returning things at all. 16. The store is laid out to make you commit early. Home Depot pushes commitment before convenience. Big, expensive categories, lumber, appliances, power tools, seasonal builds are positioned so you encounter them early when you're fresh and more confident in your project decisions. Once you mentally commit to a project, everything else becomes easier to justify. Smaller essentials come later. Fasteners, connectors, fittings, the things you didn't plan for, are waiting once you're already invested. At that point, walking away feels like wasted effort. This isn't about navigation. It's about locking you into a mindset where finishing the project matters more than questioning the cost. The next thing quietly works against you. The prices you see might not even match where you're standing. 15. Online and in-store prices don't always match. Most shoppers assume the price on the shelf is the same everywhere. It often isn't. Home Depot treats online and in-store pricing as separate systems. A product can be cheaper online, more expensive in the store, or flipped the other way around depending on inventory pressure and local competition. What makes this work is friction. Most people don't stop mid-aisle to check their phone, and even fewer want to deal with asking for a price adjustment at checkout. So shoppers pay the higher price simply because it's the one they saw first. And once you realize prices shift depending on where you look, the next department starts to feel less random and more strategic. 14. Paint isn't where it is by accident. Paint is one of the first major departments most shoppers run into, and that's intentional. Paint anchors projects. Once you choose a color, everything else starts to feel locked in. Trim, flooring, brushes, drop cloths, rollers. A single decision cascades into a cart full of add-ons. Home Depot leans into that psychology. Paint placement increases repeat visits. because projects tied to color almost never feel finished the first time. Before we move on, if this breakdown is already changing how you see the store, hit like and subscribe. The rest of this countdown goes even deeper into the stuff most shoppers never notice, because the next fact explains how your shopping behavior doesn't just affect you, it shapes what Home Depot stocks next. 13. Your purchases. Quietly decide what stays on the shelf. Every time you buy something at Home Depot, it feeds a larger system. Sales data doesn't just track revenue, it determines which products get reordered, which get more shelf space, and which quietly disappear. If an item doesn't move fast enough, it doesn't matter how good it is, it gets replaced. That's why some solid products vanish without warning, while mediocre ones seem impossible to get rid of. It's not about quality, it's about velocity. Most shoppers think they're choosing from what Home Depot offers. In reality, Home Depot is constantly reshaping the offer based on how people shop, often without anyone realizing it's happening. And once you understand that, the next thing makes sense. Shelf space itself isn't earned, it's negotiated. 12. Shelf space is negotiated, not earned. Where a product sits in Home Depot has very little to do with how good it is. Brands negotiate for visibility. Eye-level shelves, wide facings, and clean blocks of space are often the result of pricing agreements, volume commitments, or promotional deals, not performance. That's why some average products feel unavoidable, while better options are tucked low, high, or split across sections. Visibility drives sales, and sales justify visibility. It's a loop. Most shoppers assume the most obvious option is the safest choice. In reality, it's just the most supported one. And once you realize placement is bought, not earned, the next thing becomes obvious. Clearance prices don't drop because time passed. They drop because something changed. 11. Clearance happens because the SKU changed, not because time passed. Most shoppers think clearance means something didn't sell. That's only part of the story. At Home Depot, many clearance drops happen because a SKU changes. New packaging, a revised model, a refreshed barcode. The product itself might be almost identical, but the old version becomes a problem the moment the new one arrives. That's when prices fall fast. Not because demand disappeared, but because the system can't support two versions of the same thing at once. The weird part is that the new item is often no better. Same function, same quality, different box. Once you understand that, you stop assuming clearance means lower value, and start asking why it's really there, because the next group of people sees these price drops before anyone else even walks into the store. 10. Employees see clearance before you do. By the time a clearance tag hits the shelf, the decision was already made. Employees can see which items are flagged for discontinuation or markdown before prices change publicly. That doesn't mean they can buy everything early. There are rules. But it does mean they know what's about to drop. This creates a quiet timing gap. Shoppers assume deals appear randomly. In reality, there's a short window where the writing is already on the wall, just not posted yet. That's why some of the best clearance items seem to vanish instantly. They weren't discovered late, they were anticipated early. And once you realize that, the next thing starts to make sense. Home Depot isn't really making its money on the tools themselves. 9. The real profit isn't the tool, it's everything around it. The drill gets you in the aisle. The accessories make the money. Home Depot earns far more on blades, bits, fasteners, hoses, filters, and add-ons than on the core tools themselves. Those items feel small, inexpensive, and easy to justify, especially once you've already committed to the main purchase. That's why accessories are placed right next to tools and project materials. You're not comparing, you're finishing a mental checklist. The total quietly climbs, not because of one big decision, but because of 5 or 6 small ones that feel necessary. The next thing stands out. The fine print on warranties isn't written for your convenience. 8. Lifetime warranty doesn't mean what most people think. That warranty label sounds reassuring. It's meant to. In practice, many warranties cover very specific failures under very specific conditions. Where items are excluded, labor is excluded. Sometimes the lifetime only applies to the original purchaser or a narrow use case. Most shoppers don't read the details because they don't plan to need the warranty. By the time they do, the expectations and the reality don't line up. The result isn't outrage, it's resignation. People accept replacements, store credit, or partial fixes and move on, even when the coverage sounded far better at the time of purchase. Once you start reading the fine print, another pattern becomes obvious. Prices don't just change over time, they change depending on where you live, and that's where things get quietly unfair. 7. Prices change, depending on where you live. Two Home Depot stores can sell the exact same item at two very different prices. Pricing is adjusted region by region based on local competition, demand, shipping costs, and even neighborhood buying behavior. A store surrounded by contractors may price differently than one serving mostly DIY shoppers. Most people assume prices are set nationally and evenly. They aren't. And unless you compare stores or check online with different locations, you'll never notice. That's why some shoppers swear an item used to be cheaper, while others never saw that price at all. Both can be right. Once you realize pricing isn't universal, the next thing clicks. Home Depot isn't just selling tools, it's locking you into entire systems. 6. The battery system is the real product. When you buy a cordless tool, it feels like a one-time decision. Isn't. The moment you choose a battery platform, you're committing to an ecosystem. Future tools become cheaper only if they use the same batteries. Switching brands later means rebuying chargers, packs, and backups, which most people don't want to do. Home Depot benefits because once you're locked into a system, comparison shopping drops off fast. You stop asking, "Is this the best tool?" and start asking, "Does this work with what I already own?" The first tool feels like a deal. The long-term cost shows up slowly, one tool at a time. Once you see that lock-in, the next department starts to feel very different, especially when Home Depot offers to handle the install for you. 5. Install services aren't in-house, they're marked up middlemen. When Home Depot offers installation, it sounds like you're dealing directly with the store. You're not. Home Depot outsources almost all installation work to third-party contractors. The store acts as the middleman, collecting the lead, packaging the service, and adding a markup for convenience. That setup protects Home Depot. If something goes wrong, responsibility shifts away from the store and toward the contractor, even though you never chose them directly. For shoppers, the risk is assuming consistency. The quality of the work depends entirely on who gets assigned, not on Home Depot's name above the door. Once you understand that, another thing starts to stand out. Home Depot actually benefits when projects don't go perfectly the first time, and that's not accidental. 4. Home Depot makes more when projects go wrong. Home Depot isn't built around one perfect trip. It's built around return visits. When a project goes smoothly, you buy once and you're done. When something goes wrong, you come back for extra materials, replacement parts, upgraded tools, or a different solution entirely. That's why project instructions are often simplified, why kits include just enough to get started, and why "you might also need items" are everywhere. Small mistakes don't stop projects, they extend them. From Home Depot's perspective, that's not failure, it's repeat traffic. The next thing becomes obvious. Some price drops have nothing to do with sales at all. 3. Clearance prices are triggered by space, not sales. When prices suddenly drop hard, it's rarely because an item failed. More often, it's because Home Depot needs the space. New inventory is coming in, planograms are changing, or a seasonal reset is scheduled, and something has to go now. That's why markdowns can feel abrupt and uneven. One store slashes an item while another keeps it full price. The pressure isn't demand, it's square footage. Once space becomes more valuable than the product sitting in it, the price falls fast, and understanding that sets up the final stretch, because the next fact explains why Home Depot designs the store around incomplete decisions, not finished ones. 2. Home Depot is built around incomplete decisions. Most people think they walk into Home Depot to finish a project. The store is designed around the opposite assumption. Home Depot expects you to start with partial information. You buy the main item first, the flooring, the sink, the tool, before fully understanding everything else the project requires. The gaps reveal themselves later. That's why complementary items are spread across departments. Instead of bundled together, you don't see the full cost up front. You discover it in stages, one aisle at a time, one return trip at a time. By the time you realize what you missed, you're already committed. Walking away feels worse than spending a little more to finish. And that brings us to the final fact. The one Home Depot relies on more than any pricing trick or layout decision. 1. Home Depot isn't a hardware store, it's a project engine. Home Depot doesn't make its money by selling you one item. It makes money by pulling you into a project and keeping you there. Everything you've heard in this countdown points back to this. The layout slows you down. The pricing nudges you to commit early. The accessories, returns, installs, and replacements stretch one decision into 5 more. You're not shopping for a hammer or a faucet. You're being guided through a system designed to turn uncertainty into repeat spending. Once you see Home Depot this way, the store stops feeling confusing and starts feeling predictable. That's the real exposure. If this video changed how you see the store, like and subscribe. More breakdowns like this are coming. So the next time you walk in, you're the one making the decisions.